Yeah. And in terms of partnerships, I mean, you spoke briefly about the sort of the localization of the company type model. You know, you said Kentucky Fried Chicken, or there's LinkedIn and others who use that model. Have you ever seen other models whereby the partner comes out of a partner, say in China, comes out of relationships between people in China and people in Australia? So in a number of business I've been involved in, I've recruited the person I've then sent to China in Australia, who's been a recent graduate and has a well-connected family or things like that. Have you ever seen any?
I think it's one. So I firmly believe in it. I've actually invested in a company that what it does, and it's kind of ironic because I actually believe China's got a lot to teach the world about the new technologies that are coming up. Mm-hmm. But this company actually looks at bringing outside technologies into China. And so it's exactly that model, which is startups that don't really know how to go into China want to focus on another area because they could focus on Europe or wherever. Mm. And so license or do a JV or give the technology to someone in China with an ownership stake in there and a long-term thing. And I think if you even go back early, a lot of the clothing brands, that's how they started. They just see exclusive licensees or exclusive distributorships to companies in China who had a 10-year license to build it up, and then they bought it back at the end of it. So a lot of companies go that way, and I think personally, I think it's probably the smartest way to do it, rather than going in and wanting to set up your own office and do all of that. That gives you a small amount of money coming back and has someone take that risk of building it up. Of course, you have the risk of they'll steal your ideas and all the rest, but the interesting story on that, that's how Nike started in the US. I don't know if you've ever heard that story, but so Phil Knight, sorry, stop me if I'm just rambling, but this is such a great story. Phil Knight is basically the original Taobao salesperson. What he did when he graduated from Stanford, went back to Eugene, Oregon, started work at KPMG, hated it. After a year, said, all right, I'm going backpacking around the world. And he was a runner himself, so he knew the market and all the rest. And the US at that stage only had Adidas. That was it. Right. So he goes traveling around the world, goes into Tibet, does the hippie trail in Afghanistan, then ends up in Japan, which he'd always been fascinated by. Prints up some name cards that says Phil Knight, President, Blue Ribbon Sports. Goes and visits ASICS, who was they were making low-cost sneakers that were competing with Adidas, but weren't anywhere apart from Japan. Goes in and says, oh, can I be your exclusive distributor for America? You're not there, you're never going there. Sure. He bought 40 pairs of shoes. He went back and started selling as a distributor for ASICS in the US.
In the US,
So a lot of these companies, they will start that way.